Welcome to this week's edition of The Scots in Us. I'm Camilla Hellman, President of the American Scottish Foundation, and this week we shine the spotlight on eco-fashion. Last December, we met at the Scottish North American Community Conference, and one of our segments was on eco-fashion. It was a great discussion with Siobhan Mackenzie, Clare Campbell, and Chris Hunt. Siobhan is a leading designer, one of the forefront designers in Scotland at this time. Clare has a wonderful mill, Prickly Thistle, which is innovative and charging along and bringing the weaving back into the Highlands. And Chris Hunt is a leading voice within the industry with his company, Genuine Marketing. And so let's now catch up with them as they tell us how they are handling the environment and how they are applying it to their fashion work today. Welcome, Siobhan.
Hi, Camilla. How are you?
I'm not too bad. And so where are you joining us from today?
I'm joining you from London.
Right. And you're very busy at the moment. There's a lot going on. So I went to your website, which is looking fabulous, all redone for this post-pandemic world at last, let's hope. And also the news that you have been asked to lead on the 2022 Scottish team's Commonwealth uniforms. Is that correct?
That is correct, indeed. So I'm designing the tartan, the menswear and the women's wear for Team Scotland for the Birmingham Commonwealth Games this year. So that's going to be in July. It's very exciting to have sort of my full creative input from the very beginning, as I've worked with them before. I worked with them in 2018 in the Gold Coast Games, where I designed the women's wear. And before that, in 2014, as I graduated, I was actually a technical assistant, just like doing alterations and things behind the scenes, which kind of sparked my interest in the games and that kind of like patriotic feeling of like supporting Scotland. So yeah, so I got involved then, and it's such a nice kind of journey to have started as a student and then now have the full design journey, really.
But we met, I think it's 6 years ago now, because you were awarded the best new Scottish designer of 2016, just as you graduated. And you came out here and everybody was so excited for you and by your designs.
That's right. Yeah. Well, I graduated in 2014 and started my business, and then I won the award in 2016. So pretty like quickly after I started the business, I won it. So it was a great accolade to have and kind of catapult my name.
And one of the things that I've always loved is that you do not only do bespoke and these wonderful, unique one-off designs, you also do a regular range. And it's full of great innovative ideas around the kilt, from having the tartan inside the pleats to these new blocks of, I love the one with the tartan and then the leopard. And these are all available on your website. So we can take a look at those at the end of the program. But that's really great. And also some new products you're doing as well around the scarves and different things.
That's right. I did the scarves kind of during the pandemic is something that's a bit easier to sell and easier, you know, it's a giftable product, a scarf, and it doesn't need to be a specific size. And especially when people weren't particularly buying outfits for going out or anything, it's nice to have an accessory. So I designed them around then. And then, yes, my latest collection of kilts is actually utilizing leftover tartan silks that I had, and the leopard was a leftover silk also, which is a really important part of my business too, because my dad is an environment officer and has been for 33 years. So I was brought up with the way of not wasting anything. So some of these silks I have had as leftovers for years, and I don't throw anything away. So when I actually looked through kind of my stock of silks, I thought, oh, I could make some really nice products out of this. And so that's what I did. I utilized fabrics that would have otherwise been waste, and made these beautiful silk kilts, if I do say so myself.
Good. So let's now begin by listening to this wonderful interview we were able to do with you back in November as part of the Scottish North American Community Conference, which we're going to hold again this October, and hope that we'll be able to speak with you and Chris and everybody again then. So let's begin then, and then we can take a few questions. I have a few questions for you the other side. I think all of you are such great voices. You've all got on planes or gone to things and been vocal about what's going on. I do have to ask you though, and I apologize if this is already happening, but is there a move? Do you have a tag, an icon like Harris Tweed does that says this is an eco-friendly, sustainable garment that's been made, or whatever you're going to call it? Is there anything that can show that this is being made in a responsible way?
Yeah,
because I think that matters for a lot of people now.
Yeah, I think it does. I mean, do you want to take that, Claire or Siobhan? Or
I was just going to jump in and agree with Claire what she was saying about the legislation about things. Was I think what people don't realise is to tag something as made in Scotland, all that really needs to put on is things like the buckle and the label. So I think both of us especially would be so for actually having some mark or label that shows the whole product's made in Scotland, and actually, because then people say, oh, but that's made in Scotland and that's made in Scotland, but your prices are totally different. Whereas actually, when your whole product's made in Scotland, obviously that's going to be coming at a different cost to something when the label's sewn on in Scotland. So that protection, I think, would be really, really important. And I know there are some people trying to get that.
Scotland does carry such weight. That's number one. So, made in Scotland over a kilt made in China or something. It's hands down, even before they get to understanding the dyes and everything else. But what you're talking about is how you're making these things, and what's behind it, and what Scotland believes in. And I think great.
And it's where the fabric is from, the person who's it's that whole journey that people know, even through to when you showed or when you did the photo shoot to go in the lookbook, that all of that was there, that the waste from the photo shoot even was all very minimal, if non-existent. And a lot of the location companies and stylists, when you're doing production now, I mean, it's in your nature, because this is, we're talking about protecting our home, aren't we? So I'm glad to say it's become increasingly rare that you come across somebody who isn't asking, are you using public transport or electric cars to get to a shoot? All of these questions are becoming more commonplace and more important. But on the issue of the sort of the brand mark or an icon, what I am aware of, I'm sure there's many people have been, I've heard conversations like this when I used to be in the Scottish Textiles group years back. I don't think it's called that anymore. But sorry, showing my age there. But I think what I am aware of is that the redesign.scot platform that I'm doing, we are in talks we're somewhere along the journey at launching a sort of fashion.scot brand, which will be various things, but essentially it will work like a membership accreditation scheme. And I'm in talks with, we have fantastic organisations like Fashion Revolution Scotland, which is sort of run on a voluntary basis by Nikki Taylor, who was one of the original Design Collective members back in 2000 and something. And then we have Sustainable Fashion Scotland as well, which is a membership community that popped up just around about the start of lockdown. They managed to have their launch party about a week before lockdown. So we've been working quite closely with them on what would accreditation mean, because you also want to reward people who are starting on the journey.
No, but you've got it with responsible tourism. That they're saying to people who are looking after, are doing bed and breakfast, wherever it is, that they are being responsible. They're being accredited, I believe, through Visit Scotland. But I think it would really be great, because I love what you're doing, Siobhan, with the reusables, and everything you do around everything in the mill is about that.
Yeah, I mean, just to kind of some historics on it, and I think things have changed significantly in the last couple of years. So being a trustee of the Scottish Tartan Authority, they've been very keen, not a mark of quality, but a mark of integrity and authenticity. Yes. So that is a woven in Scotland tartan mark. So what you're up against in some respects is that you have a very small industry, and you've got to try and get your voice across to the policy, the decision makers, to get that legal kind of framework and approval to put in place. So it started with obviously the Scottish Register being officially recognised in 2008. So they have worked with a degree of success, but it's been very, very difficult for a lot of these mills to be taken seriously, which is really quite difficult with politicians, my pals, who I email on a regular basis. They see my name and go, "Oh my goodness, here she comes." But it's kind of there she comes. But so they have tried for years, and I think that is changing now, because I think there is a real awareness as to, with obviously cotton posted in Scotland, I think there is a real awareness as to how massively damaging fabrics is. And this is not talking about, and I've been in conversations where they just go, tartan thingies, don't even go there. This is like, fabrics are massive, 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 massive. And it's not just what we wear, it's this protection for home, and talk about cars being electric, so much oil and fabrics in cars, as I say, the NHS. When you start looking at that, you go, oh my goodness, how much oil do we want to make people lie in when they're, poorly? So I think there is great organisations out there. We're working with the likes of iBioIC. It's a bioengineering kind of academic industry facility where there is huge developments happening, and we're working with Johnson's Belgium, which is really exciting because they're obviously one of the biggest in the industry, on how we can start showing the potential from natural fibres and the potential from reshoring a lot more of this on here, not just for what we wear and the icon that we're world renowned for. And I think it will come, Camilla, but there has been people trying relentlessly, and I think sadly there was just this kind of, small economic contributor. We're looking at whiskey, we're looking at oil and gas, we're looking at tech. We had some unicorn companies, and it was all about them managing and siloing their funding, shall we say. So I totally agree, and I think we have this conversation a lot with consumers, and it's taking a little bit more time. So we kind of tend to buy on a kind of cost and convenience basis. And I think you're finding there's a lot of brands out there now who are being so transparent, supply chain maps, their badges of honor, things that we do. And when you spend a little bit of time getting to know a brand, quite often they're already, being transparent with you. And that is an email them, message them. But I totally agree, there should be a framework in there. And I think that will come now. It has to come now, because it's such a big fundamental piece across several sectors.
I think it also, I hate to say this, I've got to wind this up with sort of a closing thing in a moment, but I think also, and this is Christopher, the marketeer, I think if we can come up with the right wordings that we all start to use around eco fashion, or whatever you want us to be calling it, so that we start getting it into everybody's heads, I think that will help. Because that I think will help. So just as a finish up for everybody, could you, Siobhan, let's start with you. What do you see in 2022? What do you hope will be coming for you within fashion and within all of this space? You're going to be seeing this more as a bespoke couture situation with a controlled manufacturing, slow fashion model?
Yeah, absolutely. And we're actually building a thing on my site at the moment where you can design your own outfit, and then again, that's just pushing the made to order. We'll only order the textiles once you've placed your orders, so we're not ordering every single batch of textiles and holding it. We just order it on a made to order basis, so that we're only using really what we need. But just touching on again what Claire was saying there, that the creative industries they do get overlooked, and I really hope that's what I would like to see change next year, certainly. And I think that is what's really special about the Scottish fashion industry, is that we all actually work together, like Chris was saying. We come together and work together on things rather than trying to do things ourselves. And Claire and I, we both work with Tartan, but in no means are we competitors, because I bought from her, she's bought from me, we've got the same end goal. So I think that's what's really special about the Scottish fashion industry, is that we support each other. We'll work together to make things happen.
So, Christopher, where are you hoping to see everything go as you hear my sirens in New York go rushing by?
Very urban, yeah. It could be an eagle for me, but I think in 2022, my hope is that partly exacerbated by COVID, but and what's happened with lockdown. But a politician said to me recently, "Stop asking for permission," and I lost patience. And I think what I lost patience with was this sort of seemingly never-ending blocked roads and like, you know, so I started doing that voluntary research, and we opened it up to anyone who was free in the industry could pitch in, and we had comments and responses from Johnstons, from makeup artists, from museum fashion workers. And one of the issues which Claire touched on historically has been that, you know, it's been seen as a small value exporter, 300 million a year. So all the government reaction has been based on that. Well, there's 2 mills that turn over that between them. And there's, you know, 30,000 people that work in the industry. So the new data that proves factually that it's worth over 2.8 billion, then suddenly we're needing to update all the government policies, because that's not up for discussion. That's a fact that's published by government. So once you start to see that change come through, I think it'll be really exciting. And also, I think, you know, we want to see SRD's festival happen again. We want to take this message on the road around Scotland and look at consumer development in terms of affordable fashion in high street spaces as well, and what the innovation is. Yeah, well, what the innovation is for fabric around that, you know, and I think change is what we want to see in 2022, and I think that there is a mood around to make it happen finally, which is very welcome.
And from you, Claire?
Yeah, so I think 2 aspects, 2 threads, a warp and a weft, shall we say. One is absolutely how we help inspire around people's conscious consumerism, you know. So as a nation, we did it in the past. That was our, you know, Janie talked in the film, like, we never bought things that were cheap, we bought things that were built to last. So it's really that consumer awareness piece. And I think working with Zero Waste Scotland or other government related to validate, and that's the price point piece as well. If something's paid with a living wage and a locally sourced material made in a slow, kind fashion way, do the math. You're not going to get a t-shirt for £5 and not have exploited the people and planet. So I think that's really important. But also I think the circular piece, the recycling piece. I think we are, as a country, we export pretty much all of our fabric waste to third world countries. It's horrific. So 1% globally is recycled. And I think Scotland, you know, we've got this amazing natural fibres, but it's limited. So we live within our means, but also think as the kind of, you know, pioneers of before, how can Scotland come up with this amazing solution that's really thinking about how we can recycle? So once we've exacerbated the reuse, you know, we reduce what we buy in the first place, but recycling, how can we then start using our textiles creative brains to really tackle that? So I think, yeah, keep inspiring people to think about what we do, but also, you know, 21st century future, how can we deal with this crazy amounts of waste that are already there, you know? So that's what I hope for 22.
Well, I could go on talking to you for hours, and I hope that we can reconvene, you know, before a year and have another conversation around this. It's so important. And thank you all for joining us. You've been a fabulous panel. That was wonderful. It was one of my favorite parts of the conference, I have to say, and so well received by all of us. It was so good to hear the 3 of you speak about the awareness about sustainable fashion, how it's managing to really have such a voice now. in that segment, you touch upon reusing fabric again in different ways. So how do I, for instance, work with you in maybe a kilt that I have, or do you have a range that has reusable objects that you're taking in and have in your collection already? How are you doing this?
So my current collection is made out of leftover materials that I've had, but if it's again something bespoke that we're doing and you would still like it to be made out of leftovers, I always have leftovers here or there. It means, for example, you might not necessarily get the tartan that you want, but we could look at what's available and make something out of that. Or if you were looking to do something with what you've already got, there's always ways to upcycle and maybe add some applique or embellishment and kind of just inject some fun back into a previously loved garment.
I know, it's rather a lovely idea that you could take that kilt or jacket that that you either had a long time ago or that was your family's and incorporate it in some ways. So that is a labeling that goes with that. Because one of the things we discussed in that segment was how do we let people know that this is made in a sustainable way and with eco awareness, and if it's recycled fabric. Are you now incorporating as an industry a label? Has that moved along at all?
I mean, labeling as such is more kind of for your composition of what the materials and things are, and my labels we usually say made in Scotland. But in terms of, it's more, I guess, going to like brands' websites and things and seeing their traceability, because a brand should have, if they have nothing to hide, for example, of where it's made and what it's made from, that should be available on the website. And it's just about taking that time to do your research on how things are made and where. And certainly in the likes of, I think I discussed on the episode, was I would love to have, for example, a kilt only be allowed to be called a kilt if it's made in Scotland, which is, I think, is something that would be great. But it's difficult because right now you could only add, for example, you could have the main part of it made overseas and then actually just add the buckles or the fastenings, and it'll be called made in Scotland. So that's really frustrating for brands like myself who genuinely do make in Scotland from scratch.
But that happened for so many years. You have Chinese, with all due respect to the Chinese for making their porcelains, they send over this inexpensive porcelain. They put some soaps in it, which are worth more than the pottery. So then they can call it a made in, Britain, made in Scotland, whatever product. And that I think is wrong.
It's false advertising, in my opinion, because if I, as a consumer, if I see something that says it's made in Scotland, I assume it's made in Scotland from the beginning. So I think it's kind of almost pulling the wool over people's eyes in a way, because you could be a consumer with good intentions thinking you're buying something that's locally made with really no clue as to where it has been made.
I do think that the Harris Tweed orb is a wonderful way of you knowing that that you're getting a Harris Tweed ethos product. There are lots of people who say in the feel of Harris Tweed, blah, blah, blah. But at least, if it's not got that orb, it's not authentic. So I think that would be great if there was an eco stamp or something that could be added alongside your names or below or somewhere. I think it'd be great. So anything I could do to help to amplify that, I'm very keen to do. So what are your plans for this coming year?
So yeah, I'll be doing the Commonwealth Games in July. So we've woven over 1,500 meters of tartan. That's all finished. So we're now making the outfits. I can't quite say what they are as of yet because we've not revealed them. But we've only revealed the tartan, and that's gone down really, really well with the public. So I'm absolutely delighted with the response to that. So fingers crossed that the outfits, when they're finished, will also go down just as well with the public and the athletes. So that's going to take up the next couple of months of my life. And I was working with Glenmorangie last year and again this year on some products for their executives. And so kind of, yeah, I guess kind of continuing the B2B side of things is always fun as well. And hopefully we'll be working together on some things too.
Yes, exactly. I'm very keen to see that happening as well. So are there any shows coming up for your, will it be, you've done your winter collection, I'm sure at this point, when will you show your spring?
So I've stopped working seasonally at the moment, and it's more just kind of what I'm building with my website actually is a design your own feature. So you'll be able to go on and select the design out of its template of all my most popular designs, select your fabrics, select your buckles, that sort of idea, and it will all generate so you can play about and design your own kilt outfit. And then that means it gives the customer a bit more freedom to experiment. You know, they might, for example, think they want something, but when they see perhaps the design, maybe not. So it gives them that flexibility of just playing around with colors and ideas for themselves first, and then we're going to have that all 3D rendered, so it's going to look super realistic. So that for me is what the direction we're going in, and plus the collections of reusing materials and things like that. So the silk kilts are actually great because they do work for spring, summer too, because they're super light. And then we're doing
into Kuwait or wherever, where wearing a woolen kilt is a little bit tough.
Yeah. So yeah, and it's something as well that the silk ones, they can be used for a more formal event as well for a female. So right. During the day I could wear them with some Dr. Martens and tights and a leather jacket, and they look really cool. But then you could put on a really nice blouse or top and some heels, and they look equally as sophisticated.
Fantastic. Well, I have to tell you, I'm so excited to have been able to be a part of your journey, to watch the first silk. Well, you sent us over a wonderful silver metallic kilt, I remember, in like 2016 for one of our auctions, which was absolutely fantastic from the runway. And it just was out of the box, and that was great. And you always are full of so much innovation. So very excited for you and to be watching all that's going on, and onwards we go. And so to speaking again very soon, and lots and lots of good fortune to you in the coming weeks. Thank you.
Thank you, Camilla.
And now let's turn our attention to the museums in Scotland, who are featuring fashion in a big way right now. The V&A Dundee has ongoing their exhibit of tartans, which Clare Campbell and Siobhan Mackenzie and Chris Hunt have all been involved in. And we'll have a catch up around that in a second. Also, the National Museums of Scotland through October have Behind the Little Black Dress, which Clare can tell us a little bit more about. And then we turn to Chris Hunt, who speaks about these exhibits and all that's going on with tartan, and also hear from the wonderful Dovecot Studios, who have a wonderful exhibit ongoing all the time around weaving. And they've been spotlighting the young talent of various female designers at this time. And so let's carry on in conversation.
Design is a really interesting thing because it's really the application of human creativity to solve a problem. But for me personally, and I think for V&A Dundee, it is those extraordinary, exquisite things that some of the most creative minds in the world have thought about. It's also our social history. It tells the stories of who we've been, who we are at the moment, and who we're going to be as a society. So design is about the stuff that we hold, we dress in, the places we live, what we gather around ourselves to create our own identities as people.
So up we come.
Wow, it's
Isn't it marvellous?
incredible. Oh, this is
You can
great. You
greet
can see the whole
apartment
city.
underneath.
It's beautiful. What a view.
V&A Dundee is Scotland's design museum. We're a young design museum, and that just means that we can be so ambitious and think really creatively about how we engage people with design through all that we do.
Right, so our robot's called Bebop. He's a robot to prevent loneliness and isolation in schools.
And the brain.
And he's got a brain. There we go. That's fab.
The Schools Design Challenge is a design project for S1 and S2 pupils, which was encouraging them to take a problem that they might face in their day-to-day lives and to use the design process to come up with a solution.
It's called the social hive because it's a bit like hexagons to represent like a beehive.
The point with this was to combat loneliness, so being able to play with other people and things that you like will bring people together.
This was perhaps their first real experience of what a design museum is, but more importantly, it opened their eyes to what design can be.
The learning programme creates lots of entry points for people to explore design and to apply design to their own lives. We started to work with Kindred Clothing, who are part of a charity called Front Lounge in the Hilltown in Dundee, and that's a social empowerment project.
Look how messy it is on the back, but like how cute it could be in there.
Before like Kindred and like coming to the V&A for all the projects, I just didn't do anything. Like it was just a mum like going to baby group and that was it really.
We got offered like loads of different fabrics to work with. We learnt all these different techniques by using threads and hand embroidery. Yeah, the teal as well would be nice. The confidence it's brought out in me is really amazing.
A lot of community groups come in and they don't appreciate what they're really capable of. So being able to see them surprise themselves, to see their skills grow and their connection with each other grow is always really rewarding. Where I want to be is that we're an asset for the community, that people see us as an accessible partner and feel that they can come to us with an approach and that we will be a supportive team.
It's hard to truly define what the Young People's Collective is. For me, it's a platform for young people to have their voices heard within the gallery, but also provide experiences and opportunities you wouldn't otherwise have had. We helped co-design the opening ceremony for the museum, being asked for opinions, given suggestions, and they felt that they were all taken very seriously. Through all that, I now find myself on the board for V&A Dundee. It feels very much we're all in it together, we're all trying to figure out what we want, and we're all working together towards a goal.
Everybody, a round of applause, thank you.
I realise that that is an important step and a really powerful thing to have. You want a young person's voice, get them in the room when decisions are being made and having their voices literally heard.
There is a lot of opportunity related to the museum, which were not there in the past. And for the people that are getting graduated now, I think it's such a comforting thing for them, because if we want to change mentality, we have to educate people. And I think it's been great to have this place somewhere to grow.
I've never worked in an organisation with such a sense of the difference it can make, such a sense of energy that it can be world-class and deeply local at the same time. I can see the change that we make every day. I can see the way that audiences react when they come in, but also the way that we work in alliance with the city's wider aims. It's just amazing to be part of a young organisation that's utterly committed to the potential and joy that design is.
I think it's helped expand a part of my creative mind. Creating stuff like this can help with dreams that I pursue.
leading activists within the textile and tartan world and fashion world. And I felt it was really important, Chris, that we talk to you today in regard to the wonderful V&A exhibit that has opened in Dundee, Tartan, as who better to give us an insight into this than you? So over to you for a few minutes to talk to us a little bit about the exhibit.
Oh, thank you for such an amazing introduction, Camilla. Yeah, I'm a huge fan of the American Scottish Foundation and the work you do, Camilla. It's a really important, cross-country platform, which is extremely. It's one of the things that really comes through from V&A Dundee's tartan. My first interaction with the cloth, obviously just growing up, you know of it, but when I started working in the industry about 25 years ago, you discover, all the ins and outs and the intricacies of it. And I think one of the things that V&A Dundee have really, really managed to do, apart from the beautiful plays, they've really thought deep about some of the exhibits. For example, Olubi Thomas, Scottish designer, now lives in London, worked with a Glasgow-based weaving studio, Viva, which is run by Christopher McAvoy and Chantal Allen, on creating a new tartan, which actually reflects his kind of, it's called Intersectional Family, and it's in green and white. Which is based on both the Nigerian flag and Glasgow Celtic Football Club. And I think the installation, they involved a designer called Jolene Guthrie, who is a knitwear designer that's been in our annual Scottish Fashion Festival that we do with V&A Dundee. And I think that, for me, was one of the exhibits that just really summed up the thought that had gone into the exhibition. You've got local contemporary designers working together with designers who are now, working in London to do a piece. And that was just for one piece that's in this fantastic show. And there's 300. So all of that was just around one piece. And there are there's 299 other pieces to look at. So I think that, for me, kind of encapsulates how exciting it is, as well as the perspective. That's a contemporary piece. And then we've got things like the Glen Affric tartan, which is proved to be, there was a piece of scientific research done around that. And that's a piece of tartan that was unearthed in a peat bog about 40 years ago.
That's the oldest piece of tartan that's known, isn't it?
In the world. That's right, which comes from the original plaid. We talk about plaid in America as well, hey? And that was one of the original names for what's now known as tartan. And plaid actually was part of, it's a language, how language changes, Gaelic and Scots and English. But plaid was a sort of a word that described a piece of cloth that you would wear during the day, that you would perhaps sleep on at night, and that you would use to carry things in as well. And that was, part of the origins of what became tartan. And obviously you have the different ways that it's developed over the centuries, including the infamous book, of course, that was put together, which assigned clan names and things to certain colours. So I think to cover all that is amazing.
Well, I think the other thing that's about tartan is the story that each tartan tells. And I don't know if everybody understands that. It was very much that when I was growing up, that you wore your tartan of your family, clan, or what you associated to. But now people play with it. And they say, well, today I'll wear a lilac tartan with those, because it's spring or something. They don't feel that they now can enjoy different tartans that are a fashion statement.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it was really interesting, within the exhibition, you are able to look at, you know, tartan that was specific to military groups, for example. There's also a film from 1745, which was the BAFTA-winning film about tartan in slavery. But the fast forward and you have the punk, you have Westward, you have this adoption wholeheartedly by counterculture of this incredible fabric. And yeah, I mean, I remember, when I was a teenager, my first purchase that was non-school uniform was a pair of tartan DMs. And, neon tartan was a thing as well. And I think that it's a fabric that's come to mean, rebellion in a lot of different ways. And it's simultaneously been used, as I say, by military people and by, the royals, for example. Kinloch Anderson, who hold the royal warrant for tartan that I used to work for in Scotland. And they created a V&A Dundee tartan specifically for this as well. And people are able to register through the Scottish Tartans Authority. They can create their own and things like this. And I think people are having fun with it again as well, which is really...
Avery will chop and change it. So the wonderful centre space is where the weavers are, and people can watch and see them undertaking commissions that they're doing, which you do day to day.
Absolutely, and that's a really important aspect of the building for us, that people are able to come and see the weaving happening. I think so much of sort of artistic production happens behind closed doors in studios. There are lots of very good reasons for that, but we have this fantastic opportunity to sort of lift the lid on what we do and let people come and see for themselves the fantastic work that the weavers do, and the tapestries. Watch the tapestries sort of grow from just the blank plain warp threads, and then watch them build up and up as they add the designs. And we have the balcony gallery, which is above the weaving studio, above what used to be the swimming pool, which is open and sort of free to the public during the sort of 3 hours every day. We don't have it open all the time to give the weavers time to sort of focus very much on their weaving without having people above them, but it's very important to us that for a period every day people can come in and watch them work.
So from in the coming weeks, and opening I think tomorrow, you have two fantastic exhibits. You have a first one that opens in tomorrow, I believe, which is going to be around the landscapes, around the Scottish landscapes. And also after running alongside it will be another one about the women in art, Scottish women in art, from the Fleming collection, if I have that right. And so could you tell us a little bit about those? Because those will run right the way through the festival and really but they're going to need tickets. They're going to need tickets because, of course, you do keep weaving. So
yes, our balcony display, as you say, is sort of themed around the theme of the Scottish landscape, and that one's actually in our free on the free balcony space, so people can come see that for free whenever we're open. And it uses it. We're working with 10 sort of early career artists, recent graduates, who have all graduated from various Scottish art schools in the last 5 years. And they're all linked by approaching the Scottish landscape in a whole series of new and inventive ways. So it's very much not just a display of paintings of mountains and fields and rivers and seas. It's it's really pushing the boundaries of what the landscape genre is and means. And I think the thing that really unifies all 10 artists is that they really look at how people interact with the landscape. So all the works are either based on how people have impacted landscape or how the landscape has impacted people, and those might be rural landscapes or urban landscapes or riverscapes. So it's really trying to showcase these new artists and give them a platform, but also push the boundaries a bit of what a landscape is. Our exhibition downstairs in our main exhibition spaces, which opens at the end of July, just before the festival starts. As you say, that's on Scottish women artists, and it covers the last 250 years of Scottish art, using the Fleming Collection's wonderful holdings as a basis for the exhibition. And that exhibition really tries to unpick a bit what it means for these artists to have been working over the last 250 years, and to show how women artists have always been a present factor in Scottish art, and how they have always been heavily involved in Scottish art, and to try and we like to think of it as being an exhibition that tells the story of the last 250 years of Scottish art, and we just so happen to be choosing to use only women artists to do it. We're focusing very much on the quality and the innovation of the art itself, rather than the gender of the artists.
So that one the women artists will run through August, and the landscapes and the young new emerging graduates of 10 artists will run through till October. So which is fantastic. And I really hope that we can maybe focus in a little bit, especially around your emerging young artists. I mean, if we can, in the next few weeks, return and do a spotlight, and maybe be down in the gallery with you and take a look at some of the works and understand it more, and some of the young people, it would be wonderful, because it isn't just weaving. This is painting, ceramics.
Absolutely. So the Women Artists exhibition does include some tapestries and rugs made by us in collaboration with various artists, but the exhibition on the balcony is painting, sculpture, video art, installations, and it's been curated by an emerging curator called Siobhan Mackenzie, also herself an artist, and I'm sure she'd be delighted to speak to you and take you through some of her decisions and some of the artworks on display.
That's wonderful. So absolutely destination to come to Dovecot, to go online beforehand,
Absolutely.
to make sure you've got the timing right. But it's a wonderful area to be in the old town and around Dovecot. So there's lots to do, and to book your tickets, because it's important to do that.
Certainly for the downstairs galleries, yes, we would encourage booking in advance if possible. So if you go onto our website and into the What's On area, you'll see the opportunity to do that. You'll also find lots of events, both in-person and online events available, talks, tours, weaving workshops, everything like that. So please do, yes, have a look and see if anything catches your fancy.
And I think they've got such a rich amount of things to discuss with you. I'd love to know more about what you were weaving for Mount Royal, for the Marquis of Bute, some of the works and beautiful tapestries you've done for them, and the history to that a little bit more, and also what is going on now to go through this new exhibit that's happening. So thank you for spending a few minutes with us this morning, and for us to be able to share and discover Dovecot Studios.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of The Scots in Us, as we shone the spotlight onto eco-fashion and design. It was great to catch up last year with Clare Campbell, Siobhan Mackenzie and Chris Hunt, and to keep our conversations going over the last few months, as they were so involved in all these exhibits that are going on in Scotland. They really are at the centre of design. Next, this upcoming Scottish North American Conference will take place on December the 1st and 2nd in Alexandria, Virginia. To learn more about it, go to our website at americanscottishfoundation.org and click on events, and you'll see it there. That'll take you to details and how to become involved, how you can attend or join us remotely. We do hope you will do so. It's our 22nd year, and we bring together organizations from around the United States, and we ask you to add your voice to the conversation. And so until next time, please join us the 1st and 3rd Monday of the month, for another episode of The Scots in Us, as we share our love of Scotland with you. Thank you. Take care.